Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. I'm here in the studio with Dr. Mary Czajkowski, Superintendent for Barnstable Public Schools. Mary, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I wanted to have you in because, as many of our listeners know, you will be leaving Barnstable. You've taken a job as Superintendent of Lexington Public Schools, a bigger district than Barnstable, very different district. You've been in Barnstable for just under 4 years, and I thought it would be interesting to have a sort of exit interview. So let's start with going over your career, because you've had a very impressive career, which includes holding, I think, the position of the head of the state school superintendent's organization, among other accomplishments.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Laura, as I said, for inviting me to speak with you this Sunday morning. And I've been very fortunate in my career. I did serve as the president of the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents last year. I'm currently the past president and still a very active member with the executive committee for MASS. And I think that has been an opportunity for me to sort of reach out to other districts and colleagues throughout the state and share with them some of our successes in Barnstable and learn from them as well. So, I've been very, very fortunate in my career here in Barnstable, just 4 years shy of being here. I feel it's been a very successful stint for me. I feel that it was bittersweet, and it will be bittersweet to leave. It was not a position, Lexington was not a position that I sought. It was not something whereby I was unhappy and wanted to leave Barnstable, but it was an opportunity that was presented to me through being recruited from a search firm. And at this point in my career, I felt it was an opportunity and a unique challenge that I needed to take a look at. So, as you said, I've just 4 shy years here. It's hard to believe it's gone by so quickly. And as I said, I've enjoyed my time here. I feel I've made some gains and some successes, and it's been a great opportunity here for me in Barnstable.
Now, we mentioned the Lexington position, and you'll be on your way there in the summer. What are the differences between these two districts? Because they are quite different, and this is really taking a new turn for you, I think.
Absolutely it is. And I don't consider this to be a lateral move. I consider it to be a move to be recruited for one of the top districts in the Commonwealth. It's a school district that has about 1,000 more students. And interestingly, when I left Agawam, I was at around 4,300 students, and then coming to Barnstable, 5,300 students, an increase of 1,000, and now going to Lexington, another 1,000, 6,300 students. I think the unique challenges that I will be faced with in Lexington, there's a very diverse population. There's 34% of their students are Asian students, and it's a very high-stress, high-expectation, high-demand community. And yet I think that those challenges that are going to be presented to me with respect to student stress, with respect to adding foreign language back into the elementary schools, somewhat a little bit different. But once again, I think a very different and unique challenge.
Now, I remember when you first started in Barnstable and you immediately convened sort of a leadership study program that dozens of teachers and administrators took part in. And the idea, if I recall, was to make sure the district had a sort of farm team of people to be able to fill key administrative positions if they became available. How did that turn out?
Well, I have to say that has been very, very successful. And you are correct. And when I first came to Barnstable, Chris Joyce, one of our school committee members, we had a dialogue around setting goals with the entire school committee. And I think the school committee's perspective was that it was important to build leadership capacity here in Barnstable. And I immediately took on that task by bringing in the National Institute for School Leaders program, NISL, which is well known throughout the Commonwealth. It's a national school leadership program. It's an 18-month program for administrators and aspiring teacher leaders. And I reached out at that time to our entire leadership team and put forward forward the opportunity for them to participate with me in NISL. And in the first cohort, we had about 22 administrators, mostly administrators, and we completed the 18-month program, but during that time, we had several aspiring teacher leaders who approached me and asked if we could begin a second cohort. And there were teachers in the district who maybe wanted to put their feet into the water, so to speak, with administration, but keep their other foot in teaching, and yet wanted to acquire some skills in leadership. So I reached out to the staff, and we began a second cohort, in which the second cohort was comprised mostly of teachers. And so in the last 3 years, we have trained approximately 50 teachers and aspiring teacher leaders and administrators in a National Institute for School Leadership program. And it has built the capacity for our leadership team. And I think we're in a very, very good position now going forward. And I think it's important to recruit young people to go into administration and to coach them and to mentor them. We currently have 12 new administrators in the district. And I, along with a retired superintendent, Joe Buckley, we are participating in 8 coaching sessions with the new administrators. And I think, we're talking about things like entry plans and how you deal with discipline and how you deal with personnel issues. So I think the notion of building leadership capacity, providing that professional growth for them to become strong administrators is important.
And it's an impressive number of people, as you said, 50 people. And when you have 8 or so schools, there are going to be these openings that come up. And, of course, you want people who in the district who could perhaps move up if that's the plan. Now, what were some of your other accomplishments, things that you were most proud of during your time in Barnstable?
Well, I think, we just broke ground for our new Early Learning Center, the Barnstable Early Learning Center. And I think for many, many years, the Early Learning Center was housed in one of our elementary schools, and it really wasn't age-appropriate and adequate space for early development and early learning. And through the support of the town council, through the support of the school committee, we are able to construct 6 permanent modular classrooms, which also will allow for expansion in case we move to a model, and Barnstable move to a model of universal preschool. And these are going to be state-of-the-art classrooms whereby there are cubbies for our children, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. There are bathrooms within the classrooms, and sometimes I don't think when you think about a 3 and a 4-year-old and having to organize 15 or 20 of them to go down to the bathroom, it takes a lot of time and a lot of lost instructional time, if you will. So having bathrooms in the classrooms, I think, is going to be a benefit. But just also having age-appropriate materials and a new facility. This is the first time our young families will be bringing their children to Barnstable, entering our education facility, and to have a new state-of-the-art early learning center, I'm very, very proud of. And as I said, Laura, I could not have done this without the support of the town council, without the support of the staff, David Kanyak, Gareth Markwell, our deputy director of finance, our director of finance, Mark Milne, our town manager, Tom Lynch, along with the school committee and the town council to support this kind of initiative in funding for a new early learning center. So I'm extremely proud of that. I think the other piece is, and it was something that I believe that Dr. Grenier had hoped to accomplish, was to remove all the trailers that currently exist in all of our elementary schools. Back in 2009, they had to close 3 elementary schools, as you know. And we've been fortunate to be able to experience a slight increase in elementary enrollment over the last 3 to 4 years. And we have programs that are occurring on stages and in hallways. And by eliminating these trailers now, which really are not adequate for educational spaces, we're building new permanent modular buildings to both Hyannis West and Barnstable West Barnstable Elementary School. And I was meeting with David Kanyak, our director of facilities, and the trailer is completely down at Hyannis West now. I'm going to be going over there this afternoon to take a look at it. But they're going to be, we're having a groundbreaking ceremony on March 11th and inviting the council and school committee and the teachers and the community. And I think that is kudos to the community for supporting this.
That's exciting stuff going on here in Barnstable. I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. I'm talking to Dr. Mary Czajkowski, Superintendent of Barnstable Public Schools. Now, one of the big issues here on the Cape in the years you've been here is this, what I would call a competition for students. What are your thoughts on that issue? It's maybe a demographic issue somewhat, but also in Barnstable, you have the added issue of the charter schools.
So I believe competition is healthy, first and foremost. As a former athlete, as a former coach, I think it's important to have competition. I think it encourages you to become better. I think it was something that very different compared to the western part of the state, in which there are charter schools, there are private schools, there are Cape Cod Tech schools, and I think that the part of the competition is really promoting what we do well here in Barnstable. And I think over the last 3 or 4 years, we've done a lot of marketing with respect to the programs and the types of offerings. I think Barnstable being one of the largest school districts on the Cape, there is a lot of diversity, and I think it reflects more so the global community that our students will face when they leave Barnstable High School. And we've seen a lot of students that leave in the grades 4 through 7 come back into the high school as 8th and 9th graders. And I think this is due to the fact of the wide variety of programs that we do offer, from Mandarin Chinese to our drama, to our arts, to our athletics. And I think parents, once again, are attracted to these kinds of programs and want their students to be exposed to any kinds of programs that will advance them as they leave public schools and into colleges and post-secondary schools.
Now, what are your thoughts on some of the other big issues or challenges that the Barnstable School District might face in the coming years?
Well, I think that's a great question. And I think some of the challenges is going to be enrollment and growth. But I think that's a good challenge to have. I think budgets are always a concern. And obviously, we're trying to continue to advance our programming and our staffing. And I think that's an area that's going to be a challenge. Budgets are always in the next 3 or 4 years looking at our numbers and looking at what we can expect from state aid. I think schools are going to be faced with making some difficult decisions.
Now, you did something when you first came on board here that I thought might be perhaps as unusual, is that you said that you would be spending about half of every day or most of the days during the week at different schools. Did you end up doing that, and how did that work out?
Well, I think my intent was to spend as much time as I could. I think at times I get pulled away for various reasons, but I think overall, I think I've been visible in the schools. I think people know me. I think I'm approachable. I think when I do, I've had an opportunity this year to have lunch with young children. I think that's really important. They know who I am. I meet with them. I talk with them. So I feel as though I always probably want to spend more time in schools, and I think that's always a challenge for me. But I think it is important. I try to visit schools on a weekly basis. I try to be in communication with staff and with our administrators to sort of check in. I'm going to be heading over to Hyannis West. Kathy Duran's class does the DREAM speeches that I'll be attending. And it's always nice to get those kind of invites to go into our schools. I think it reminds me of why I became an educator and why I became an administrator in making those connections with children.
The other thing that was kind of different is that you met with groups of parents. There were sort of coffee houses or dinners that you had with groups of parents around town. How did that idea work out?
Well, I think when any new superintendent comes into a district that's new, people want to meet you. They want to find out who you are, what you're about, what are your priorities, what are your values, what are your beliefs. And I think my first two years here, I conducted a number of superintendent house calls, which really provided an open door for parents to talk with me about their concerns, to reach out to me. And I think, as I look back on the last even 2 years, I've had parents email me, communicate with me. I think they're willing to reach out to me. They see that I'm a leader who is willing to sit down and at least listen to people, take into consideration their concerns. And I think through conducting those initial house calls, it begins to build trust about who I am.
And then as we talk around the Cape about declining student population, I remember when I interviewed you last summer, your story was actually about how the student population, at least the younger students in the town of Barnstable, was growing. That was very surprising to hear and ironic, where just a few years ago the district closed a few schools. What is going on with the student population here?
So right now we're this year heading into this year we have about 30 more students than we had from the previous school year. So I think what's happened is it's beginning to stabilize. And I think when I first came, there was a trend toward a drop in enrollment. And I think through marketing, I think through talking about our accomplishments, I think parents are looking more into what Barnstable does have to offer, and I think we're beginning to see that stabilization of declining enrollment and hopefully begin to see a little bit more of an uptick in some of our enrollment. In having 30 more students, I know that may not seem like a lot, but when you're used to losing 50 to 100 students, a gain of 30 students is moving in the positive direction.
And some of that gain, if I recall, are students who do need instruction in English as a second language. Isn't that right in the town of Barnstable?
That is correct, and that's been an area of growth that we've seen. Back in 2009, roughly 170 English language learners, and now we're projecting anywhere from 420. So I think that is an area of growth, but it's an area of growth not only in Barnstable, but it's across all of the Cape districts and even Western Mass districts. We're seeing more ELL students coming into our schools, and it's something that we have to address.
And in the last half minute or so, any final thoughts you'd like to add about your time on the Cape?
Well, first of all, Laura, I want to just tell you how much I appreciate working with you. When I first came to Barnstable, you immediately reached out to me, and I always felt you had a genuine interest in our schools and what we're doing. I think I've had a great run with a collaborative school committee who has allowed me to do my job and very supportive. I think a town council who I have garnered the support of the town council. They were very involved in the modular construction projects. And once again, it's building those relationships. I think that has been for me a success here in Barnstable, and I will miss those relationships because I really believe people have worked together to do what's in the best interest of children here in Barnstable. And it is bittersweet for me. Yet, I think people that have spoken with me have understood that this is an opportunity that anyone would take a look at in moving forward.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. I've been talking to Dr. Mary Czajkowski, Superintendent of Barnstable Schools. Mary, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for asking me.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.